People aren't quitting life, they're slipping out of the simulation. If you felt the pull to vanish, this will explain why the world suddenly feels made of cardboard. Listen, the edges of things feel thinner now, don't they? The office smiles, the happy posts, the crowded rooms that somehow feel empty. You touch them and they fold like set pieces from a stage play that forgot its audience. You sense it in your chest first. An ache that isn't pain, a pressure that isn't fear, just a quiet signal saying, step back, look closer. Something here isn't real. They told you meaning lives in loud places. Titles, timelines, applause, but your heart keeps hearing a softer frequency beneath the noise, like a message coming through an old radio at midnight. Static, then signal. Static, then signal. And with each flicker, the script you were given loosens, line by line, until the words no longer fit your mouth. You try to ignore it, you nod, you smile, you play along. Yet the scene feels heavier than it should, as if gravity itself got edited. Every conversation asks for a mask. Every room demands a role, and you can feel it, thread by thread. Your truth being traded for a comfortable costume. At first it's subtle, a laugh you don't mean, a yes you don't feel. Then one day the mirror doesn't argue. It simply shows you a face that learned to survive by pretending. That's when the world turns flat. Colors lose temperature, goals lose pulse. The timeline you were hustling toward suddenly looks like a corridor with no windows. You check your pockets for reasons to stay. Habit, obligation, the promise that it will make sense later. But the inner knowing shakes its head gently, firmly, as if to say, not like this, not at this cost. This isn't bitterness, it isn't superiority, it's compatibility. A soul grown too large for a story that forgot how to breathe. You're not running from life. You're refusing a version of it that empties you. And the moment you see that, the old rewards stop working. The metrics go silent. The trophies turn lightless. Even the compliments slide off like rain on glass. What used to feel like progress now feels like drift. You notice patterns you missed before. The way outrage becomes a hobby. The way opinions become armor. The way noise is used to hide the absence of depth. You don't despise people, you feel their weather. Thunder in bright rooms, lightning behind careful words, and your compassion doesn't vanish. It widens, because you can tell most of us were never taught how to carry what we feel without handing it to someone else. So the pull intensifies, not to disappear from life, but to disappear into honesty. To step out of the echo and into the signal, to let what is false fall away, quietly, cleanly, without ceremony. No speeches, no wars. Just a door you choose to close, and another you choose to open. Call it the silent exit, the gentle refusal. The moment you stop feeding the scenery and start feeding the soul that has been asking for so long to be heard. You won't need to prove it, you won't need to announce it. The proof will be in the air you can finally breathe, in the peace that doesn't ask for permission, in the strength that doesn't need an audience. Stay with me, because what looks like vanishing is not the end of the story. It's the first true sentence, and once it's spoken, the cardboard bends, the stage lights dim, and a real horizon appears, distant, steady, alive. There's a moment you can't schedule, the soft fracture where the script stops sticking to your skin. You're mid-conversation, mid-scroll, mid-smile, and something inside whispers, this is borrowed breath. The room hasn't changed, but your nervous system has, tuned like a string that now hears the hum beneath the noise. What used to pass as harmless chatter lands like static. What used to feel normal suddenly feels negotiated. You start noticing the weight of performance, the practiced laugh, the careful sentence, the way people trade certainty like currency, louder when they're unsure, sharper when they're afraid. You don't judge it, you recognize it, because you've worn those costumes too. Armor stitched from opinions, safety pinned by approval. But the fabric itches now, the seams tug. Your honesty wants air. Crowds ask for momentum. Truth asks for stillness. And in that stillness, you begin to see how many rooms are powered by unspoken storms. Frustration dressed as righteousness. Envy disguised as advice. Emptiness masquerading as ambition. Not because people are unkind, but because pain seeks a place to hide. When you see that, participation without conscience becomes impossible. The digital stage amplifies it. Scroll, and you feel 1,000 mirrors throwing light at each other. Projections, outrage, denial, each insisting it's the sun. Your chest tightens, your eyes blur, not because you dislike humanity, but because your heart refuses to swallow what isn't food. The soul is precise. It knows the difference between nourishment and noise, and when it chooses quietly. This is where the idea of disappearing gets misunderstood. It isn't a tantrum. It isn't a crown. It's conservation when light keeps pouring into containers that leak by design. Wisdom closes the tap. Not to starve the world, but to stop starving yourself. You step back, not as punishment to others, but as protection for the flame you're finally ready to guard. You may feel guilt at first. The old contract says, stay visible, stay agreeable, stay available. But look closer. How much of that contract was written by fear? Fear of being misread, fear of being called difficult, fear of losing a seat at a table that never fed you. The new contract is simpler. Be honest, be kind, be intact. If a room requires you to abandon one of those, it's not your room. And then the body confirms what the heart has known. The heaviness begins to lift where you stop pretending. The fatigue loosens where you stop over explaining. The fog thins where you stop proving. It's not magic, it's math. Energy returns when you stop paying the tax of self-betrayal. You don't need applause to measure it. You'll hear it in your breath. You'll feel it in your bones. A quiet rightness settling like dawn. People will have opinions, let them. They're watching a play you're no longer in, reviewing a performance you no longer give. Smile gently, bless them inwardly. Continue. You're not leaving life, you're leaving the version of life that asked you to trade truth for belonging. The world doesn't lose you here. It meets you here. Unmasked, unhurried, unmistakably yourself. So if the walls of the old story start to feel closer than the sky, don't panic. It means your inner horizon has outgrown its frame. Some doors open with noise. This one opens with a breath. Step through it softly. The stage will call your name with familiar music. Let it play. Keep walking. There is a different music waiting, quieter, deeper, real, and once you hear it, you won't mistake the echo for the song again. It doesn't begin with fireworks. It begins with a hallway. A quiet turn. A door you close without noise. No manifesto. No grand farewell. Just the steady decision to stop feeding what keeps you hollow. One day the group chat goes unanswered. The next, you skip the room that steals your breath. Then the account sleeps, the calendar clears, the mask loosens. From the outside, it looks like absence. From the inside, it feels like oxygen. You aren't abandoning people, you're abandoning the performance. There's a difference. Kindness without honesty is theater. Service without conscience is self-erasure. You finally see how much of your availability was a bargain. Take my presence, and I'll borrow a sense of worth from your approval. The moment you recognize that, the bargain dissolves like mist at sunrise. Worth doesn't live in an audience. It lives in alignment. This is why the most awake rarely slam doors. They simply stop knocking. The rooms that required shrinking don't fit anymore. The conversations that rewarded pretending lose their flavor. Even the compliments sound like echoes in an empty hall. You feel it in your body first. The muscles unclench where you stop proving. The breath deepens where you stop apologizing for your boundaries. Symptoms that had no clear cause begin to soften, not because you fixed yourself, but because you stopped draining yourself in places that were never designed to hold light. Social media is often the first frontier. You scroll and feel the static, the glittering stage of projections, 1,000 unhealed storms throwing lightning at each other and calling it virtue. Your heart won't metabolize it anymore, not due to contempt, due to precision. Your soul is measuring the weight of every room, and it refuses to carry what is not yours. So you step back, not to hide, but to heal the line between attention and intrusion. Workplaces echo the same pattern. Meetings become theater. Roles speak through faces. Metrics multiply while meaning thins. You're not above the job. You're simply allergic to the part of it that asks you to bend your truth into a shape that spends you. Sometimes you remain, quietly altering your orbit, choosing depth over drama, substance over spectacle. Sometimes you leave with gratitude and without resentment, as softly as a tide changing direction. Friendships shift too, not all of them. Only the ones that require the old costume to keep the peace. You stop auditioning. If the connection breathes with honesty, it lives. If it only breathes with your compliance, it sleeps. No accusations, no trials. Just a respectful silence where performing once stood. You pray well for them in your heart, and you continue. Lighter, clearer, true. People may name this withdrawal, pride, or coldness. Let them use their words. You are not the custodian of their interpretations. You are the custodian of your integrity. And integrity is not loud, it's luminous. It does not need a speech. It needs a spine. A quiet, steady yes to what is right. And an equally steady no to what is not. Understand this. Disappearance is not disappearance. It is distillation. The unnecessary falls away so the essential can be seen. You're not running from responsibility. You're choosing the responsibilities that do not require you to betray yourself to fulfill them. You're not escaping the world. You're stepping out of its costume rack to carry a light the costume could never bear. And in that clarity, a new gravity appears. Solitude stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like architecture. Silence becomes a language you can finally hear. Depth returns in unhurried waves. You start to sense the contours of a life that doesn't need an audience to be real. Craft that honors truth, words that carry medicine, work that keeps its hands clean, relationships that protect what is sacred rather than spend it. So the silent exodus continues, not as a rebellion against life, but as a reverence for it. Step by step, room by room, you return the borrowed pieces and walk with what is yours. No noise, no spectacle. Just a clear path forming beneath your feet like dawn on calm water. And if anyone asks where you've gone, the answer is simple. I didn't disappear. I stopped pretending. And the world that remained is the one I was meant to breathe. There's a point where sight turns heavy, where awareness is no longer a window, but a wind that moves everything it touches. You hear laughter and feel the ache beneath it. You hear certainty and sense the fear holding it up like scaffolding. Rooms don't just look different, they weigh different. Some give you breath, others borrow it without asking. Your spirit becomes an instrument, tuned so finely it can no longer pretend dissonance is music. You didn't ask for this sharpness. It arrived the way dawn arrives, quiet, then undeniable. And with it comes a truth few will name. Not every environment is fit for a soul that has chosen honesty. When you carry light, you learn economy. You learn to stop pouring into bowls that were carved to leak. Not because you've grown hard, but because you've grown careful with your words, careful with your hours, careful with the flame that lets you recognize what is true. People will call it distance. It is stewardship. They will say you've changed. They are right. The point of growth is not to stay legible to who you were in rooms that asked you to be smaller. The point is to remain faithful to what was entrusted to you, Conscience, clarity, compassion that doesn't collapse into performance. That kind of compassion knows when to stay, and knows when staying becomes consent to what fractures you. So you practice a quiet art selection without resentment. You choose work that doesn't bargain with your integrity. You choose voices that speak from sincerity rather than spectacle. You choose silence over arguments that only breed more noise. Not every debate is a bridge. Not every invitation is a duty. And not every loss is a wound. Some losses are doors that finally open inward. You start to notice a simple measure. Does this place ask me to dim, or does it ask me to deepen? If dimming is the toll, you pass. If deepening is the call, you bow to it. In one room, your honesty is welcomed like rain. In another, it is treated like a stain that must be scrubbed. Both rooms teach you. One how to blossom, the other how to bless and walk away. Either way, you refuse to mortgage your peace to purchase a seat at a table that feeds on pretense. This is the season where symptoms begin to speak a new language. The fatigue that never had a name. It eases where you stop apologizing for your boundaries. The dull ache behind your eyes. It softens where you stop carrying storms that are not yours to calm the fog in your thoughts. It clears where you stop translating your truth into something safer. It isn't miracle, it's alignment. What you guard grows, what you betray withers, and the body keeps the minutes of every agreement you make with yourself. You are tempted at times to explain, to tidy your exit with perfect sentences, to prove you are still kind, still loyal, still good. But kindness is not an essay, it is a posture. Loyalty is not unlimited, it is aligned. Goodness is not a costume, it is a cleanliness of heart that refuses to harm. Even when saying no is misread as harm, let misreadings pass through. Let labels float by like paper boats on a river you no longer live beside. Understand, withdrawal done with bitterness is a cage. Withdrawal done with clarity is a corridor. You are not turning your back on life. You are turning your face toward what gives life meaning. The difference is felt in the tone you carry. No scowls, no secret triumph. Just a gentle refusal to be drafted into battles that do not heal. And a steady yes to the places where truth is allowed to breathe. And then, you hear it. A thinner noise. A wider quiet. The world does not go silent, but it stops shouting. Your inner room grows larger, with windows you hadn't noticed before. You begin to sense how a life can be built from the edges. Honest work, clean speech, a circle small enough to care for and large enough to keep you humble. No spotlight, yet nothing hidden. No spectacle, yet nothing dimmed. From here, love changes shape. It ceases to be a rescue mission and becomes a reverence. Honoring the distance that honesty requires. Honoring the nearness that tenderness invites. You help where your help is water, not where it becomes flood. You speak where your words are medicine, not where they become theater. You remain teachable, you remain soft. But your softness is no longer available to what feeds on it. So if the world begins to feel like cardboard while your soul feels like cedar, do not be alarmed. The scenery is supposed to fold. The roots are supposed to hold. You are letting go of what was painted to look like depth, so you can live in what is depth. And when the old rooms ask, where did you go? You can answer kindly, plainly, firmly, I went where my peace could hear itself. I went where my words didn't have to lie to be loved. I went where light is not something you spend to be seen, but something you guard to stay true. There comes a door without a sign. Plain wood, quiet hinge, a handle worn by no one. You don't burst through it, you arrive. The hallway narrows, the noise thins, and something in you says, here. Not to escape the world, but to meet it from a place the world can't invade. Call it solitude, call it sanctuary, call it the room where your soul can finally speak in its own voice. Uninterrupted, unperformed, unafraid. At first, it feels like emptiness. The calendar loosens. The crowd thins. The echoes stop returning your lines. You check for loneliness, then realize what you're feeling is spaciousness, the kind of space that lets meaning breathe. The kind of quiet where truth doesn't need volume to be heard. It needs clean air. In that air, your heart remembers its original rhythm, not the rhythm of deadlines and display, but the steady cadence of what is real and kind and intact. Masks lose their glue here. Without the stage, light of constant eyes. You notice how often you adjusted yourself by a fraction, just enough to remain acceptable. You see it clearly, not with self-accusation, but with mercy. Small compromises, small silences, small edits to the truth. In this room, the edits stop. The sentence of your life returns to its natural grammar. Simple, sincere, whole. No slogans, no theatrics, just meaning reclaimed. You begin to recognize the difference between isolation and refinement. Isolation shrinks the heart. Refinement clears it. Isolation is a wall. Refinement is a filter. What passes through clean. What cannot pass is not forced. You are not turning colder. You are turning clearer. The fog that once felt like mystery is revealed as confusion. The clarity that once felt severe is revealed as kindness, with a backbone from this quiet. Your memories reorganize themselves. Moments of self-betrayal glow, not to shame you, but to ask for forgiveness. Places where you were smaller than your conscience invite a gentle repair. You don't drag yourself to a courtroom in your mind. You simply tell the truth. That hurt. That wasn't right. I won't do that to myself again. And the heart, hearing honesty, softens. The body, hearing agreement, loosens. The breath, hearing safety, deepens. Outside, the world goes on. Loud, bright, demanding, let it. The test was never whether you could silence the world, but whether you could refuse to be drafted into a noise that breaks your peace. The door stays open behind you. You are not hiding. You're fortifying the ground from which you will one day speak, create, serve, and love without borrowing your worth from applause. That is not retreat. That is responsibility. In solitude, appetite changes. The taste for spectacle fades. The hunger for sincerity grows. You find yourself drawn to words with clean hands. Work that doesn't require disguises. Companionship that honors truth without theatrics. The circle is smaller, but it is alive. Fewer faces, deeper faces, fewer sentences, truer sentences. You start to understand why the most enduring lights rarely stand in the center. They shine from the edges where heat becomes warmth instead of wildfire. And then something subtle shifts. Silence stops being the absence of sound and becomes the presence of meaning. You can hear the difference between urgency and importance, between flattery and blessing, between noise that dazzles and words that heal. That discernment is a gift and a guardrail. It protects what you're becoming from the gravity of what you've outgrown. Will some call it withdrawal? Yes, let names be names. You are not obliged to live at the mercy of other people's summaries. The truth is simpler. You stepped into a cleaner room so your heart could stop coughing. You walked to the edge so your vision could be faithful. You chose the hermit door not to disappear but to distill, so that when you return with something the noise cannot counterfeit. Stay here as long as it takes. Not a day more, not a breath less. When the time is right, the same quiet that called you inward will guide you outward. And when you cross that threshold again, you won't be leaving sanctuary. You'll be carrying it. Your voice will not be louder. It will be steadier. Your presence will not be heavier. It will be truer. And the world, even if it does not understand, will feel the difference. Because peace has a weight, and integrity has a light. What happens in the quiet is not passive. It's carpentry, joinery, the steady work of aligning inner beams so the house can hold weather. You sit with yourself, not as an interrogation, but as a reunion, and feel how the floor of your being starts to level. No audience, no applause, just the click of truth sliding into place. The noise outside keeps performing. Inside, you hear the soft rhythm of repairs. This stays, this goes, this matters, this does not. In this refinement, power changes definition. Power is no longer volume. It is voltage. Not how loud you are, but how clean the current is that moves through you. You begin to sense where speech would dilute the signal and where silence would strengthen it. The old hunger to be seen thins. The new courage to be clear thickens. You don't need to win rooms. You need to honor the light that trusted you enough to live here. Memories step forward, some bright, some bruised. And you notice a kindness rising that does not excuse harm yet refuses to poison itself with bitterness. You can bless what cannot continue and release what cannot remain. Not as performance, not as superiority, as hygiene. A heart cannot carry soot and shine at the same time. You choose shine quietly, repeatedly, until it's no longer a choice, but a nature. What you consume becomes precise. Words with clean hands find you. Voices that practice sincerity sit at your table. The rest drifts past like leaves on a slow river. You are not angry at the leaves. You simply don't mistake them for fruit. The measure is simple now. Does this deepen my honesty? If yes, it stays. If no, it passes. This is not coldness. This is warmth with boundaries. A hearth that welcomes and a flame that will not be bargained away. You'll notice how peace begins to carry weight. An invisible gravity that rearranges your orbit without drama. Invitations that once felt irresistible feel optional. Arguments that once demanded your breath dissolve before they form. Even your footsteps change, less hurry, more authority, not over people, over yourself. You are not trying to be untouchable. You are learning to be unshakable in what is right. Here, love refines. It stops rescuing shadows and starts honoring souls. It knows when closeness heals and when distance protects. It speaks gently and stands firmly. It forgives without forgetting the lesson. It gives without selling its spine. Love in this room is not a theater trick. It is a clean river that refuses to flood the banks to prove it is water. From the outside, some will call this transformation invisible. Let it be. Roots are invisible too. Until the tree survives a storm, others cannot. What is building in you is architecture, not costume. It will reveal itself when the wind arrives. When pressure asks its old questions and the new you answers without trembling. You won't need to announce the change. The absence of collapse will do it for you. And when the quiet has finished its lesson for now, you will feel the hinge turn, not a push, a permission. The same voice that guided you inward will offer a direction outward. Not to rejoin the noise, but to carry stillness into places that have forgotten what it sounds like. You won't step back as a performer seeking light. You'll step forward as a lamp that brings it. No spectacle, no strain, just presence. Steady, sincere, and unmistakably alive. You were never running away. You were refining. You stepped off the stage, walked the quiet hallway, opened the plain door, and found the voice that does not bargain. Now you return. Not to be swallowed by noise, but to stand where light can live. The cardboard world still flutters, the spotlights still spin, the arguments still recruit. Let them. Your task is simpler, deeper, truer. Be honest, be kind, be intact. If a room asks you to abandon one of these, smile and keep walking. Hear this clearly. Vanishing was not an ending, it was an anointing. What fell away were costumes. What remained is character. What dimmed were spotlights. What rose is signal. You are not harder now. You are not colder. You are cleaner. You don't need a crowd to confirm it. The steadiness in your chest is witness enough. This is what alignment feels like. Quiet, rooted, undeniable. From the edges, build what lasts. Speak when words are medicine. Stay silent. When silence guards the sacred, choose circles that don't tax your honesty. Choose work that doesn't charge your peace as a fee. Let misunderstanding be weather, and let your integrity be a house that does not leak. You owe no speeches to noise. You owe fidelity to the truth that trusted you. If this found you at the precise moment you were ready to stop performing, then let this be the line you cross. I won't trade my light to be seen. I will use my light to see and to serve. That is the hinge. That is the door. That is the return. Now, if your heart said, yes, anywhere in these words, do 3 simple things to amplify the signal without feeding the noise. Subscribe, so this message keeps meeting you where it matters. Share this with one person who's been feeling the thinness in the world and needs language for their own quiet exit. Comment, I choose edges that build. Let the right people find each other in that simple sentence. No slogans, just a lamp carried faithfully. By you, through you, for those who will one day whisper, I thought I was disappearing, but I was becoming.